If you work with people that aren't as good as you, then you become a country of midgets. If you work with people that are better than you, then you really grow.
Steve Jobs lived his life with a desire to make sure that if today was his last day on Earth, he was about to do something that he wanted to do. Looking at himself in the mirror and asking himself this question every morning.
If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right.
Allowed him to assess his own life and find if he was excited about his path. If he wasn't, he knew that this meant it was time to make a change. He knew that this was especially true after he was diagnosed with cancer and given only a small time left to live. Knowing that his time was limited gave him a different perspective than any other time before and placed a value on his time that he knew was priceless.
Because death is very likely the single best invention of life.
Steve Jobs went against the grain of living a life that didn't go against the system. He realized that his time was valuable and that this life wasn't set in stone. If he pushed against the system, he could create change.
There is a description of what we do, and most importantly, there is an opportunity to always question what we do.
And this change could be for the better. He wanted people to know that whatever you are doing, make sure you are passionate about it, because without that passion, you are willing to stop at the first sign of adversity. That passion will help you push through and create the change that he knew was possible.
So I consider the most important job of someone like myself is recruiting.
He says enjoy what you do because you spend a considerable amount of time doing it. That valuable time won't ever be returned to you. So if you're spending it doing something that you don't like, then you need to take the time to reassess your life and find what matters to you.
And you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, if you're not having fun doing it, you don't really love it. Your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. But life, that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it, you can influence it, you can build your own things that other people can use. And the minute that you understand that you can poke life and actually something will, if you push in, something will pop out the other side. That you can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing, is to shake off this erroneous notion that life is there and you're just going to live in it, versus embrace it, change it, improve it, make your mark upon it. I think that's very important. And however you learn that, once you learn it, you'll want to change life and make it better, because it's kind of messed up in a lot of ways. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again. It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had a scan at 7:30 in the morning, and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. I didn't even know what a pancreas was. The doctors told me this was almost certainly a type of cancer that is incurable, and that I should expect to live no longer than 3 to 6 months. My doctor advised me to go home and get my affairs in order, which is doctor's code for prepare to die. It means to try and tell your kids everything you thought you'd have the next 10 years to tell them in just a few months. It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it will be as easy as possible for your family. It means to say your goodbyes. People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing, and it's totally true. And the reason is because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, if you're not having fun doing it, and you don't really love it, you're going to give up. And that's what happens to most people, actually. If you really look at the ones that, being successful, unquote, in the eyes of society, and the ones that didn't, oftentimes it's the ones that are successful loved what they did so they could persevere when it got really tough. And the ones that didn't love it quit, right? Who would want to put up with this stuff if you don't love it? So it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of worrying constantly. If you don't love it, you're going to fail. So you got to love it, you got to have passion. How much they spent on information technology as a percentage of revenue. And he got a very counterintuitive answer, right? You'd think that either the really successful companies would either spend more or less than the not successful company. He wrote a book, though, before he got this job called The Business Value of Computers. Rather thick and not good bedtime reading, but you can plow through it and there's some incredible stuff in it. And he asked two questions in particular. One was he surveyed a bunch of companies from not very successful all the way up to really successful, depending on your theory. But it was exactly the same. They all spent about 2% of revenues on information technology. And he found this curious, and so he asked another question. How do they spend their money? And he found out that the really successful ones, or actually let's start with the not so successful ones, as success increases and dollars increase, he found out that the not so successful ones spent the majority of their money on management productivity, and the more successful ones spent the majority of their money on operational productivity. Now, this was not very pleasant for me to read because I spent the first 10 years of my life on management productivity.